You are listening to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, episode 17. Accountability can be great for creating short-term results, but if you want to create long-term sustainable results, self-accountability is a skill that you must learn. So let's dive in. Welcome to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, a show for women who are tired of feeling hopeless, defeated, and frustrated with their bodies and want to have more energy to show up every day as the best version of themselves. I'm holistic nutrition consultant Shannon Hagel, and I can help you reprogram your brain to create bulletproof consistency with ease and address your personal hormonal imbalances that are leading to weight gain. Life can feel a whole lot better with a body you love, delicious food, and a little wine. And I'm here to help you get there. Ready to lose weight and feel amazing in your body? Let's dive in. Welcome, friends. When starting new health shifts or trying to lose weight, so many people seek out outward accountability, someone to keep them on track so that they can be successful. I need someone checking in on me. Then I do really well. Then I can go the distance. This outside accountability can be a great tool to get success in the short term. But if your goal is long-term success, not flash in the pan kind of success, not success for a couple of months that then slowly starts to peter out and then suddenly you're back to your nightly bowl of popcorn on the couch while staying up for an extra hour or maybe 3 later than you had actually planned. If your goal is long-term success, to feel confident as fuck in your body all year round, day in, day out. So you aren't doing this dance every time short season creeps around the corner. The skill that you need to learn is self-accountability. Now, I know some of you just rolled your eyes at me because if you could be accountable to yourself, you would already be doing that, right? So I'm going to walk you through why traditional accountability is not working for you long-term, and how to actually cultivate self-accountability. Because like all skills, it can be learned. It's okay if you suck at it right now. Most people do. So they just think, that's not the type of person that I am. I'm just not someone who can keep myself accountable. But self-accountability is not a personal trait. Okay, it's not a part of who you are as a person. It is simply a learnable skill. I think most people have the wrong understanding of what accountability is in the first place. So we tend to think that accountability is someone who is going to make sure that we follow through on the thing every single time. But that's not actually what accountability is. Accountability is not about perfection. Accountability literally means someone who is completely responsible for what they do and give a satisfactory reason for it. So it doesn't mean you have to do the right thing every time, but you have to take responsibility for why you didn't do the thing that you'd planned to do. It's such a strange concept to even consider getting outside accountability, because outside accountability in and of itself removes the responsibility from us. It puts it onto someone else. Someone else has to be responsible for us being responsible. So then who's holding that other person accountable to holding us accountable? It's such a messed up notion, but we think we need it, right? We feel more confident and comfortable with outside accountability because we take the ownership away from ourselves. We no longer need to shoulder the responsibility, the burden of that responsibility, which is such a relief. We want someone else to take that on for us. And it's because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to be responsible for our decisions when it comes to prioritizing what we said we were going to do. Most of us are actually pretty amazing at keeping our word and taking responsibility for those around us. Most of us a little bit too much. Like we take on responsibility for things in the lives of those around us that are definitely not our responsibility. But we follow through or we sacrifice other things to make sure that we uphold our word to others. And yet, we have such a struggle following through on the promises that we make to ourselves. We don't want to disappoint others, but we allow ourselves to break our promises to ourselves over and over again. We have made so many promises to ourselves that we've not followed through on, so why would we ever trust ourselves? We've shown ourselves that we're not very trustworthy. There's so much evidence. So no wonder we can only be accountable to other people. We start to put more value in what others believe about us than what we believe about ourselves. We want to control what others think about us. And if others can see us as someone who follows through, who is consistent, dependable, and strong, then that's what really matters. But the reason we are striving for others to think this about us is because we don't think these things about ourselves. We think that the way to become that person is through other people believing that we are that person. But you don't change who you are and what you believe about yourself from the outside in. We become the person we want to be. We become the person who is consistent, who follows through, who doesn't struggle with their weight, who meal preps every week, who prioritizes working out every day. We become that version of ourselves from the inside out. One of the most annoying beliefs about healthy habits is that 21-day myth. If we can just follow through on something for 21 days, it becomes a habit, and then we have no problem doing it time and time again. If we just willpower our way through it for 21 days, we will magically become the person that always does it. Habits aren't created through willpower. The driving force behind our actions is actually very important to whether or not we will continue those habits beyond the 21 days. It happens through becoming aware of the real reasons why we don't want to follow through on the healthy choices in the first place. Why are you avoiding it? Radical self-accountability is not developed through perfectionism, willpower, or unwavering follow-through. It is developed through taking radical responsibility for our results. And what that means is deciding to follow through on our promises to ourselves. And when we don't follow through, being willing to understand why, to learn from it. Typically, when we don't follow through on something, there is very little learning that happens from that situation. Say you're trying to lose weight or create a healthy relationship with food, so you decide to quit nighttime snacking. First thing in the morning, that sounds very doable. You're super motivated. You've got all the plans on how you're going to stop yourself from mowing down on that big bowl of popcorn in front of the boob tube when 8 o'clock rolls around. But as the day wears on, so does your resolve. You get pulled into meetings that are completely useless and prevent you from getting your real work done. So now you've got to work through lunch to get your shit done. Then you're racing to school for pickup so that you can get the kids changed and back out the door for after-school activities. Maybe your kid forgets their ballet shoes at the front door, so you have to circle back when you're already 5 minutes down the road to go pick them up, which means they're going to be late yet again. By the time you get everyone home, it's already time for bed, but no one's even had dinner yet. So now you have to slap something together from the shit you found in the back of the fridge because yesterday also got away from you and you weren't able to go to the grocery store. By the time you get everyone off to bed, that strong resolve that you had that morning has all but disappeared. You're desperate for a break, some relaxation, for a stress release. So out comes that good old faithful bag of popcorn to save the day. Now, self-accountability was not actually broken because you broke down and ate the popcorn. Self-accountability is what happens next. Do you shame yourself? Do you beat yourself up? Say shitty things to yourself? Get frustrated, annoyed, disappointed in yourself? Do you push all that down, trying to ignore it, promising yourself, tomorrow is a new day. We can start again then. Or do you take a step back? Do you question what happened here with grace, with curiosity, with the desire to understand what made it so difficult to follow through on your initial plans? What were you seeking? What were you needing in that moment that you went for the popcorn? And how else can you provide that for yourself outside of food? This is self-accountability. This is taking a radical responsibility for your own results. Self-accountability is following through on what you say you're going to do or understanding and learning why you didn't. When we ignore, when we blame, when we shame, we aren't taking responsibility. We aren't being accountable. We're just being shitty to ourselves and ignoring any possible solutions. Building self-accountability isn't as difficult as we think because it doesn't actually require us to be perfect. It just requires us to take responsibility. Now, you can start building self-accountability in two ways. So first, you can start off with the 1% better rule. Your brain has lots of evidence that you don't follow through, right? You don't follow through on what you tell yourself you're going to do. So we need to start building up evidence that you're actually the type of person that does, that you're the type of person that follows through on your word to yourself. You are that person. And you do that by setting yourself up for success. Don't make promises to yourself that you're not willing to keep. Decide instead to do 1% better than yesterday. So instead of taking these big leaps that feel really hard for you to follow through on, think of the baby steps that move you towards that big leap. Decide on following through on the first baby steps. That is what you are committing to. If the grand plan is to stop nighttime snacking, pull that back. What would be 1% better than you're doing right now that moves you towards that ultimate goal? Maybe it's having a smaller bowl of popcorn. Maybe it's identifying what feeling you are hoping to get from the popcorn. Maybe it's delaying having the popcorn for a couple of minutes and just sitting in the discomfort of that unanswered urge and getting familiar with what that feels like in your body. When you set up realistic goals for yourself that you're willing to follow through on, you start to build that evidence for yourself that you follow through on whatever you tell yourself you are going to do. Now, the second way that you can build self-accountability is deciding that you are going to commit to either following through on the things you say you're going to do or learning from the experiences when you don't. Just decide that those are the only two options. You are either winning or you are learning. You are becoming the detective, uncovering why you avoided following through, what feelings you are seeking by making the decision that you hadn't planned to make. Where in your life are you creating the need to escape or create those feelings in the first place? For instance, for me, the end of the day was always so hard. I was exhausted. I felt unregulated. I felt like I had nothing left to give. Drained. I'd given so much of myself to my kids, to my job. I was trying so hard to just hold my shit together. So at the end of the day, I was seeking a release. And the vehicle for that was a mega pint glass of wine and a bowl of chips or popcorn. And when I started to practice self-accountability, instead of just saying shitty things to myself, right, when I gave in and then pushing it down with shame and not looking at it, I started to look at where in my life I was feeling the most drained, where I needed more support, or where I could start sprinkling in some of that release, that recovery, that relaxation outside of food so that I wasn't so desperate for it at the end of the day, at that dreaded witching hour every evening. Being accountable to someone else will never work for you long term because it either means that you need to pay for ongoing accountability forever or requires a loved one to take on that responsibility and be unwavering in their deliverability. Self-accountability is not about perfection. It is about building trust with ourselves that we will either do what we say we're going to do or that we will work to understand and learn from it when we don't so that we can grow, so that we can do 1% better the next time. Self-accountability is a skill and it can be learned and it can be built upon. And it is necessary in order to create long-term success. So here's to taking radical responsibility for ourselves and where we want to go. You have a beautiful rest of your day. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to worry about missing an episode, you can follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you could share the podcast with others who you think might benefit from it and leave a rating and review to let me know what you think. It doesn't have to be a 5-star rating, although I sure hope that you love the show. I want your honest feedback so I can create an awesome podcast that provides tons of value. Visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com/podcast launch for step-by-step instructions on how to follow, rate, and review. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Mindset and Metabolism Mastery. If you want to learn more about balancing your hormones, repairing your metabolism, and losing weight with empowerment and ease, visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com. I'll see you next time.